Okay, friends, it's getting a little bit late, isn't it? So hang on. I want to share with you my best thinking on direction of the conference, kind of do a review a little bit, and some of the priorities that I see are critical for this annual conference and the future of it. First of all, happy day after Memorial Day. So, some of you folks, if you didn't have Memorial Day off, it was your own fault, or you just came to a meeting anyway. So that's it. It is hard to believe that a year and a half has already gone by, and I feel a great blessing to be your bishop. The Oklahoma Conference is a great conference with great leaders and great churches. We are leaders across the church, and we've made a positive impact around the world. And thank you for your part in that. We are making a difference. I want to acknowledge the groups who have prepared for our annual conference. First, thanks to our host, OCU and St. Luke's. I also wish to acknowledge the staff and the leaders who've done the work for this event. Your tireless efforts, your selfish efforts, and all you've put into this has been inspiring. I extend a thanks to the cabinet for your work in both the conference and leadership in the conference center, and express my gratitude to the appointive cabinet for the work that you've done in making appointments. I wished I had more time to brag on each one of these people, but this address is already going to be too long and it's too late. I do want to express my gratitude to Greg Tiener for his service on the cabinet, and he served as our dean as well. And I bid welcome to Victor McCullough as he becomes the new superintendent of the Heartland district. Now, the balance of this address is divided into 4 sections. First, I wish to introduce the theme of the conference and touch briefly on 2 key concepts that have guided the work of the conference in the past year. The second section will review the vital conference statistics. The third section will review 4 key priorities. And then finally, I'll touch briefly on the pending 2019 General Conference. First, the theme of the conference is quest. The word comes to the English language through the Latin, and it means to seek or search for, to ask or to inquire, to go on a pursuit. And so at the root of every quest is a question or series of questions. I'm broadly framing our quest this way: how do we reclaim our purpose and integrity in the face of dramatically changing circumstances? The first question asked, who is our client? Paragraph 601 of the Book of Discipline states, the purpose of the annual conference is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world by equipping its local churches for ministry and providing a connection for ministry beyond the local church, all to the glory of God. The primary client, not the only one, the primary client of the annual conference is the local church. It is not the other way around. The job of the conference is to help the local church produce fruit and to create connections for mutually fruitful ministry. Last year, I explored a distinction between what is vital and what is valuable. We've continued with that image. A valuable ministry is important. A valuable ministry might be compared to taking a bath. It's important to bathe. When I was a camp counselor, I'd tell the boys in my summer cabins, you must bathe at least once this week. And the same holds true for annual conference. You know, it is valuable to bathe, but if you don't, you will still be alive. On the other hand, breathing is vital. If we don't breathe, we will die. The question is, what is vital ministry and how does it relate to our community? What's vital for the people in our community, not us? What does it mean to live missionally? To ask, what is the oxygen for the community, not our oxygen? What's the oxygen for people outside, not inside? In the conference, valuable ministries shape their own work and are not amenable to the annual conference. Their primary client is not the local church. Valuable ministries are expressions of our missional heart. Valuable ministries deserve our joyful support. Vitality is different. Vitality lets us breathe the winds of God's Spirit, and it has a higher claim on the conference because value depends on vitality. Vital conference ministries create platforms to equip local churches to fulfill the primary task of the church and then create mutual connections for ministry. From this foundation, I want to examine historical statistics as a measure of how well we are doing together. If you wish, you might follow on page 79 of your pre-conference journal. For several years, the Oklahoma Conference has been reporting statistics under the heading of worship attendance, evangelism, spiritual formation, missions, and stewardship. Our corrected report, corrected as of since the booklet came out, our corrected report is that we showed a net increase of 2,111 people in worship in 2017. That is something to celebrate. Now, I've got to put an asterisk by it because this year, at the direction of the General Council on Finance and Administration, we began including online worshipers this year. If we exclude online worshipers, our decrease was 371 people, which is the smallest in years. We are making progress in worship together. We still have a challenge both to reach our community, and we have a vast opportunity to reach the online community. How we do it, we've got to figure that out. But I encourage us using the phrase for tomorrow, let's see all the people. The area of evangelism measures the number of professions of faith. That number is down for the third year in a row. Be watching for new initiatives and resources for confirmation for both children and adults. Last year, and I think this is significant, we had more adult confirmands than children. If your church is not offering confirmation, why not? And don't limit the audience for confirmation to people already inside the church. Let's see all the people. The area called spiritual formation measures the number of small groups, Sunday school classes, and Bible studies. The number of people in these groups is showing a steady decline, a slight decline, but the rate of decline is increasing. It suggests that our existing groups are steady, but we've not been starting enough new small groups for these purposes in our local churches since at least 2006. Let's start new groups and see all the people. We continue the trend of increasing the number of people involved in missions, our fourth statistic. The year-over-year increases are significant, and we have increased our involvement 9-fold in missions since the year 2006. It's great. I've already talked a little bit, and we've talked some about, okay, let's finish this. That's a project that I hope that we will be ready for the next disaster, because it'll probably come sometime. I remind you that we had about 756 families whose homes were flooded, damaged by floods in 2015. And we, United Methodists, stay until we're done, until it is finished. And we're there this summer to finish what for many people was a heartbreaking loss. And United Methodists are there across this state to help. We stay till the work is done. Our disaster response team is assessing the needs due to the recent wildfires in western Oklahoma. And if we don't have anything else for me to do, I'm going to be happy to go out and help some of those folks or get in the way, one or the other. Let's see all the people. The last statistic I want to review is in stewardship. The total amount given to other organizations for benevolent and charitable purposes rose in 2017. That is a one-year reversal of recent trends. Thank you for your generosity. There was a decrease in giving through the apportionment ministries of the church. This decrease, plus the feedback conference personnel and committees have received, indicates the desire of local churches to have greater discernment on the causes they support. As a result, the recommendation to reclassify several apportionments as connectional opportunities provides local churches greater sense of ownership in choosing to support these valuable ministries. As we give, let's see all the people. Thus far, I've introduced Quest, the annual conference theme, named the primary client of the annual conference as the local church, and reviewed our statistics. Next, I want to share 4 conference priorities that guide our quest to build effective platforms from which local churches can fulfill our mission to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. The first priority is the need to develop effective leaders who are passionate to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. We need leaders, both clergy and lay, who possess the spirituality, vision, and skills to help local churches effectively reach your community and demonstrate the fruit of that ministry, part of which is to experience growth. In this address, I want to focus on specific local church leadership needs, because not all leaders are alike. Different church sizes call for different leadership strengths. The leadership needs of the local church and the local community matter. We must develop leaders capable of serving with excellence in all the contexts we currently have, and an equally important strategy is to develop leaders to reach people in ways we have not yet discovered we need. I want to illustrate the concept using different categories of church size within the Oklahoma Conference. We received reports from 499 churches in the Oklahoma Conference at the end of 2017. Here's a breakdown in size. 100 churches average less than 18 people in worship. 348 churches average 75 or below in worship. So that's inclusive of that 100. 386 churches average less than 100 people in worship. So put another way, almost 4 in 5 of our churches worship 100 people or fewer in worship. The remaining 112 churches have an average attendance of 100 or more. Of those churches, 34 churches average 250 or more in worship. Finally, 7 churches average 600 people or more in average worship attendance. Every church size requires skill sets that may or may not be helpful in other church sizes. Tomorrow morning, our guest teacher, General Secretary of Discipleship Ministries, Dr. Junius Dotson, will be leading us in the plenary teaching session. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll be offering workshops for churches of various sizes, followed by workshops to help with specific ministry opportunities. And I extend my gratitude to each leader and team and to those in the conference office who have coordinated this work. If you're teaching, assisting, worked on the planning, the setup, or have helped in any other way to make tomorrow's teaching day possible, I want to ask you to stand. All right, thank you. Equipping people to lead our existing churches into greater strength and effectiveness is critical to the conference. The second critical initiative of the conference is to start new churches and new faith communities. The second priority is one I wish to applaud you for your efforts in the area. Our new projects are having a positive impact on our annual attendance statistics. Currently, we have 10 projects that are meeting for worship on a regular basis. Others are in process. But of these 10, the total average attendance is 1,525 people. So we've increased 1,525 people from these 10 new starts in this last year. That's one reason attendance is not down as much as it otherwise would be. I refer you to page 41 to 44 in your pre-conference journal for individual descriptions. I am thrilled that we are launching a new faith community after annual conference called Charis Alive Ministry. It's a new faith community that'll be led by Reverend Victoria Lee. Friends, women can plant churches and new faith communities too. More projects are underway in Midwest City and Tulsa, and with only 2 or 3 more new church plants, we will stop this chronic decline in worship attendance inside our buildings. And so, Lord Jesus, send us more laborers for the harvest. Before I leave the discussion on new churches and faith communities, I want to share an observation. Church plants of any kind are expensive. A parent church incurs many costs that are mostly hidden to the outside observer. A parent church experiences significant disruption in its staff alignment, as well as significant financial costs when birthing a new church, new campus, or new faith community. Even while these costs are shared with the conference through our apportionments, the parent church congregation makes a huge investment of money and personnel, faces new challenges, and no guarantees. New church starts are costly, disruptive to the status quo, and have an unknown outcome. We need to acknowledge that cost and say thank you both to planters and to parent churches and to staff. If you're involved in a new church, a new faith community, if you are a parent church, if you serve on the staff, if you're on the conference team for New Faith Communities, would you stand? The third priority is to invigorate our local churches. I have just recently begun using the word invigorate, and I noticed tonight I've got to learn how to say it a little better. And I've used that instead of the word strengthen in describing this priority. Why the change? The word invigorate comes from the Latin word meaning to thrive or to flourish. The goal for our church is to thrive or flourish. Invigoration represents an active strength, a capacity for exertion to do something, and implies effective action. The word describes the work, the attitude, and the spirit that we must embody to launch a new era of ministry in Oklahoma that meets the needs of people, that helps us to see all the people in our communities today. In paragraph 122 of the Book of Discipline, we find 5 aspects of leading a church to fulfill its mission. Fulfilling the mission requires an active strength, an increased capacity for action, and doing something that is effective. Here's the summary of the paragraph. Proclaim the gospel. Lead people to commit their lives to Jesus Christ. Nurture people through worship, spiritual disciplines, and fellowship. And finally, to quote this part, send people into the world to live lovingly and justly as servants of Christ by healing the sick, feeding the hungry, caring for the stranger, freeing the oppressed, being and becoming compassionate, a compassionate, caring presence, and working to develop social structures that are consistent with the gospel, end of quote, which is to live out our mission. These functions require invigorated churches. Sometimes there are gaps in our ability to fulfill the mission of a local church. We can't do it alone. The New People, New Places initiative exists to impact local communities and to invigorate local churches that require difference-making funds to reach their mission fields or communities in new ways. I refer you to pages 10 and 11 for their report. The projects are initiated at the local church level and seek to make an impact in at least one of the areas named in the discipline. All the programs in the world will not restore the vision of a church that has lost its missional site. Local church ministries begin when we see people. Seeing people sows the seeds of vision. Vision is the basis for strategic planning. Planning is the platform for action, and action produces fruit. Who are the people in our local communities that we need to see? I strongly encourage every church to engage your community in at least one of these 3 ways. Many of you are doing it already. Partner with a nearby school. Honor your first responders and provide them a Strength for Service book. By the way, if you haven't heard, this year's offering goes to support this outreach. And third, get ready for that next disaster and step up and serve somebody. As I was praying for churches in the conference One day, a few months ago, a scripture came to mind, and I paraphrased it like this: those who want to save their lives will lose them. Those who lose their lives for Jesus' sake and the gospel will find them. The local church does not exist for itself. If we think we exist for ourselves first, we will die. If we put the gospel of Jesus first and serve others, we will find our lives. Man. The fourth priority is strengthening the stewardship and financial alignment within the conference. When I came to Oklahoma, I listened to a lot of conversations, and I thank you for sharing your insights. I've heard a couple of more insights since I've been here just today. A major theme, though, has emerged, and one of those themes is beneath the surface. The conference is experiencing some financial distress. I can give you several examples, but I'm going to limit to this. The Oklahoma Conference Council on Finance and Administration embarked on a long-term study, and the fruit of that study noted that conference attendance has declined at a steady rate of 1.5% a year. The financial obligations continue to rise during that period, and the age demographics of the people who attend our churches within the conference continue to increase. The conclusion: without significant intervention, the financial assumptions are unsustainable. I extend thanks to the CFA and the task force that studied the big picture of the conference and made recommendations. These recommendations are on page 106 to 108 of your conference workbook. The recommendation, the proposed budget for 2019 is 6.36% less than the 2018 adopted budget. That's a budget decrease of over $900,000. On page 108, the decimal formula for the conference has been frozen at the 2018 computation. The 2018 amount is the starting point for determining the 2019 apportionment. Each local church will experience a decrease of 6.36% in apportionments for 2019 as compared to 2018. Now that assumes the budget is adopted as proposed, and we still have a couple of days to sleep on that. But whatever the percentage is, it will be distributed evenly among all of the churches. Everyone will have the same percentage impact. A recommendation that recategorizes several items from apportionments to connectional opportunities is found on page 108 and 109. Connectional opportunities are valuable ministries that serve people and are worthy of our continued support. The recommendation to move them to connectional opportunities seeks to acknowledge the value of the ministry, approve it as a valuable endeavor, and place the decision for support at the local level. The change appeals to your heart for ministry instead of mandating participation as apportionments. I want to clarify a couple of questions around apportionments and connectional opportunities. If you pay 100% of your apportionments, you will be listed among the church paying 100% of your apportionments. We will acknowledge that with gratitude. We will also acknowledge your church if you pay 100% of connectional opportunities. As you approach the question of apportionments, you are expected to pay 100%. As you approach the question of connectional opportunities, you are given the gift to approach them with a joyful spirit of giving. I want to make another detour to address another question that surfaced. I do not believe in using apportionments, connectional opportunities, attendance numbers, or any other measure that you can think of to create a system of punishments in making appointments. The appointing process is about placing the right leader in the right place at the right time. It may not always feel good. Measures are indicators of effectiveness, but without context, their usefulness is limited. Godly character, general effectiveness, and context fit are leading criteria for making appointments. I encourage you to be fruitful in your ministry and don't worry about tomorrow. Now I want to return to the budget process. Every entity within the conference has made sacrifices to create this budget. Each area has reduced its budget request. The size of the conference staff is over 10% smaller than it was a year and a half ago. The proposal on page 109 reduces the percentage on which superintendents and conference leaders' salaries are determined. The reduction from 148% to 146% will essentially freeze salaries at the 2018 level. All other salaries for conference employees were frozen for 2019. In the coming year, the conference office has invited the General Conference on Finance and Administration to conduct a study of the salary structure of all conference employees. The study will consider current job descriptions, current staff structure, and compare our salaries and structure to other conferences and the Oklahoma job market. We expect to create low, mid, and high range salary structures for each position, and we expect this work to be done before the 2020 budget begins. The aim is to remove subjectivity and to standardize our pay scales. I wish to affirm the work of the conference and encourage you to do the same. In addition, I commend the conference committees for your hard work. It's often been painful work to make the reductions and recommendations for the 2019 budgets. You have met the assigned budget targets with creativity and courage. In concluding these reflections on stewardship, I wish to relay a series of facts to you. First, the provisions of the Book of Discipline do not allow an annual conference to decrease its general and jurisdictional apportionments, and the items on page 107 reflect that requirement. Second, in 2017, the apportionment payout for district superintendents was severely underfunded. The work of our superintendents and our DAs are critical to the annual conference, and I reiterate, these must be paid in full. Conference staff and conference committees worked hard to reduce budgets last year, and yet the conference was forced to draw about $250,000 from reserves to offset the shortfall. Third, in the spirit of transparency, the budgets of each district will be available after they're adopted. The conference and districts work on different timetables, and this makes this a challenging task. I want to say within the finances, thank you for your support of the ministries of the Oklahoma Conference. Our impact is worldwide, statewide, and local, and we work hard to make sure every dollar that you give to the local church makes a difference, and your conference works hard to make sure it goes where it's meant to go. This concludes my remarks specifically related to the Oklahoma Conference. And now I want to update you on the pending 2019 called General Conference. The source for these remarks is taken from guidelines provided to all bishops by the council that may be used by each bishop in a public discussion. At the 2016 General Conference, a resolution was passed asking the Council on Bishops to develop a recommendation for the denomination regarding the current stance on human sexuality, especially as it relates to LGBTQ plus people. The called General Conference set for February 2019 will address these matters. The work of the Council on Bishops and its commission, known as the Commission on the Way Forward, was guided by the mission, vision, and scope of the task. Emerging from this guidance, the Council's recommendation seeks to maximize the presence of a United Methodist witness, allow for as much contextualization as possible, and create as much unity as possible. The Council's discernment process was guided by an overarching desire to strategically help the General Conference do its work and to honor the request of the 2016 conference to help the church find a way forward. The Council on Bishops will submit a report to the 2019 special session of the General Conference that includes the following 3 points. 1, all 3 plans, the Traditionalist Plan, the One Church Plan, and the Connectional Conference Plan will be submitted to the General Conference. 2, the Council on Bishops will recommend the One Church Plan. 3, the report will include an extensive historical narrative of the Council's discernment process regarding all 3 plans. The Council will make, quote, all the information considered by the Commission and the Council of Bishops available to the delegates of the General Conference, and acknowledges there is support for each of the 3 plans within the Council. The values of our global church are reflected in all 3 plans, end of quote. The materials will be released upon completion of translation into all the major languages of the church, and the public release expected date is July 8th of this year. Here's a brief statement of the 3 plans. The Council of Bishops recommends the One Church Plan, which will provide for differing practices and approaches to human sexuality. The plan removes prohibition against same-gender marriage and ordination. It does not compel pastors or churches to conduct or host same-gender weddings. It does not compel boards of ministry or bishops to approve or ordain candidates. It allows for central conferences to retain traditional language and values. The Traditionalist Plan retains the language present in the 2016 Book of Discipline and adds various points of detail. The Connectional Conference Plan opens the way for the emergence of autonomous churches that are affiliated with one another but have different approaches and policies related to human sexuality. The Oklahoma delegation to the General Conference met earlier this month. It will meet again after the documents are released for prayer, study, and discernment. I encourage you to visit umc.org as one of your sources of information. As soon as the report becomes available, the conference will provide a link so that you may acquire a copy of the proposal. As soon as possible, the delegation will create an informational video, and we still are considering additional plans and resources. I wish to conclude with a brief story. In the recent meeting, some of the exciting ministries of the Oklahoma Conference are being discussed, and someone raised a question: with all the unknowns in the denomination, should we just wait before starting anything else? It's a valid point. My response, however, is this: it will be at least a half a century before the church finds resolution to some of these issues. By the time we resolve these, others will emerge. Such is the nature of a quest. A quest is filled with trouble and danger. A quest holds both peril and promise. We've produced fruit for the church and, more importantly, for God. The real ministry takes place in the lives of the people we touch. We cannot wait for the resolution of issues in the church to do good to people who need us around the world. We have 4 priorities: leadership development, plant new churches and new faith communities, invigorate existing churches, and align our stewardship efforts. Each priority is grounded in the strategic plan of the conference and complements the major points of emphasis within the denomination. In conclusion, I want to say it's a privilege to serve you. I pray that God will continue to bless our conference, guide our church, and make us fruitful. Thank you, Oklahoma Conference.